In a world where audio is increasingly gaining popularity over other mediums of communication, how your brand sounds will be how consumers perceive it. Now, a recent study by Visa found that 81% of consumers had a more positive perception of brands that use sound or animation cues. Now, sonic branding refers to the use of sound to reinforce a brand's identity. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Analytics Insight, where we talk about some exciting innovations across different industries. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. Now, sonic branding is the expression of your brand through sound, in simple terms, if we say. So, jingles like "I'm loving it" for McDonald's, or the sound you hear when you start up streaming services like Netflix might spring to mind. But sonic branding is much more than this. Many brands are now seeking to create a distinct audio identity across a range of brand experiences. Now, the challenge for brand owners is how can sonic brand assets evoke a consistent emotion to build deeper connections with people? And today with us, we have Rajeev Raja, founder and soundsmith at Brand Music. Hi, Rajeev. How are you doing?
Hi, doing great.
Great. So it's a pleasure to have you with us on a podcast. And I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation with regards to how sound or audio or voice-enabled technology can help brands stand out across different industries. So let's
Yeah,
start with telling us about your company and its specialization.
right. Brand music has been around over a decade uh, in India, and I think we are the only really specialized sonic branding agency in the whole of Asia. And
Hmm.
now it's, I think, apt to give you a little background of how we started brand music. So a lot
Right.
of us in brand music come from the advertising, marketing, and branding world. So I personally was a creative director in advertising, working in agencies like Bates and Mudra, which then became DDB Mudra. So my last paid position was National Creative Director at DDB Mudra. Now, from my college days, actually even before I got into advertising, I've been a musician, and I kept my music going right through my advertising career till about 12 years ago. I decided that I'm going to do music full time. The question was, how do I monetize my passion? Because my music is more in the Indo jazz fusion space that wouldn't have fed the family, right? So I had to figure out how to monetize my passion and be around the world of music. And I think the answer really came from my experiences over the past 20, 25 years, which was straddling the world of brands and music, right? So that's how brand music came about. Today, I am founder of Brand Music. I have with me my co-founder Ajit Verma, who is the CEO. So he looks after the business end of things, and I look after the creative end of things. But essentially, you could look at us as a brand strategy company that delivers sonic assets or sonic identities for brands. So that's really where we are, and it's been a fantastic journey. And I can tell you a lot more about the challenges, the opportunities that challenges we faced in the early days, and the opportunities that we see now as we keep chatting.
Definitely, looking forward to like a more interesting conversation. And thank you for telling us how Brand Sonic was founded or what was inspiration behind founding.
Brand music.
Yeah, Brand Music. Sorry. So,
Yeah.
having said that, can you also tell us more about your role and contribution towards the company? Because I believe that you both you have tried to bring across your passion of music and your advertising career and try to blend and create like a sonic identity brand specific company.
Right.
So, can you tell us more about your role as well? Like how what's your probably your daily work life like, or what are some of the things that you're specifically focusing on?
Yeah. My daily work life is very exciting. So I'm currently sitting in a studio in Bandra West,
That's
and
that's
that's where
that's fascinating.
yeah, that's where I spend most of my time with a fantastic
Right.
bunch of musicians, brand strategists, production designers, uh, sound engineers, etc. And we've got a team now of 10, 15 people. So every day interacting with lots of youngsters. And I think my role essentially is to understand a brand's essence and translate that into a sonic essence. That really is the journey and role that I play. I think with music and sound, it's not as easy as doing it with color and how visual identities are created, because the grammar of color is more understood by brands, but the grammar of sound and music is often a bit of a black hole, right? So a lot of our clients tell us, hey, we're not musicians, we can't sing a note to save our lives, so how do we take a call on the sonic identity? And we tell them, look, you don't need to, you just need to be a consumer and listen to it as if you were a consumer and give us your feedback. And really, that's the whole journey. The key is translating an intangible and abstract uh, thing such as a brand into a tangible piece of music that reflects the values and persona of the brand. And I think that's steering that entire journey, I would say, is my role in brand music.
Nice. I think it's I wish we also had an opportunity to sit and work in a studio among some creative aspects and then creative people and
Sure.
helping companies amplify their digital presence using the power of music and sound. But I think when we're talking about music and sound, I think it's for brands, it's not a new concept. In fact, I think we can
Right.
trace its use back to the early medieval period when the church bell became a sound mark in Europe. Now, the distinct
Yes.
sounds of the bell were highly valued and recognizable within specific communities and making it a powerful tool for identity creation. Now, if you
Right.
fast forward it to today, we have social networks and music streaming platforms. So music and sound have been like a very integral part of our daily lives, and music consumption becomes more personalized as well, according to individual preferences. So I
Right.
want to really understand what exactly is sonic identity and why building a strong EQ for brands in this era is very important.
I think that's a fantastic question. So, sound has been part of our lives from the from the first man on the planet, from
Right,
Neanderthal
right.
man. They communicated using sound. uh, the bird calls would tell them if there was danger around close by, etc. So the ancient man used to use drums to communicate. Even in
Hmm.
the African jungles, the tribes used to use drums to communicate with each other. So sound has been an integral part of humanity. And you spoke of the church bell. That's absolutely right. Even our temple bell has a very scientific significance beyond just being a sound that sort of alerts you. So the science of sound is something that absolutely fascinates us. And you did speak of some of the early sort of examples of sonic branding, maybe I would say 15, 20 years ago, even in India. If we listen to
Right.
Britannia or Titan, uh,
Hmm.
these are all early examples of. But the thing is, those actually came up by serendipity or by sort of default, where it was created for a television commercial, and then they found that, wow, this is really working for the brand, and then it became a long-term property. It wasn't designed to be that, right in the beginning necessarily, right? So I think the difference is you also mentioned the word jingle, and I'd like to create a clear difference between a jingle and a sonic identity. Sonic identity is not a jingle. A jingle can be part of a sonic identity. A sonic identity is a much larger field of sound that represents a brand, its ethos, its values, and a jingle with words can use the same melodic, pattern of a sonic identity and create a song out of it as something that you would do to amplify the sonic identity, right? So the sonic identity doesn't start with the jingle; it could end with a jingle, right? That's really the difference. And the reason why we are saying this is important is because when you're designing a sonic identity for a brand, you're not designing it for any particular medium. Now, the analogy of a visual identity is probably easier to understand when specialist agencies design a visual identity. They don't design it for a medium, they design it for the brand, holistically for the brand first. Once it meets the parameters of the brand, which is media agnostic, then you can actually start developing it for different mediums, right? So you can take the visual identity across a visiting card, you can take it across a print ad, you can take it across a television commercial, you can take it across uh, your retail floor, etc., etc. Now, with the sonic identity, it's exactly that. We don't design it for any one medium, but we design it for the brand holistically. And we have a very simple and intuitive process where we interrogate brands. We have a workshop with the brand to understand the values of the brand. And then we actually translate that in using the science of sound. We say using the science of sound and the art of music to actually convey the emotions of a brand, right? Now, I can give you a little demo, really, and I think that might just bring this whole thing alive, just to demonstrate
Right,
the
sure,
science of sound. So,
sure.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit on my flute, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to close your eyes and just go where the music takes you.
Okay,
And
sure.
after this, after I finish playing, but it's important you close your eyes, okay? And after
Okay,
we finish
okay.
playing, I'll ask you a few questions of what you saw. You definitely would have seen some imagery. You may feel some emotions. It may trigger some
Mm-hmm.
memories. Yeah. So
Sure,
ready?
sure. Yeah,
Uh,
works. Yeah,
here
ready.
goes. Here. So before the
That's
phone rang, were you able to get any feeling from the piece of music?
Yes, definitely. I think when you asked me to close my eyes and just listen to the music, I think I could imagine myself that I'm sitting and enclosed or surrounded by a very scenic beauty.
Right.
Probably I can see some waterfalls besides me. Everything is like green around me. So somewhere
Right.
I'm very relaxed and calm. So yeah.
Wonderful. So, just look at it. Now, here we are talking on a podcast. There is no visual frame of reference for you. And you just
Hmm.
heard me play the flute, and all this beautiful imagery just came into your mind. And it
Right,
touched your heart in terms of making you feel calm and pleasant and
hmm,
relaxed, right?
right.
Now, this is the power of sound. And this particular piece of music is a composition of mine called Peace, and I played it all over the world. And anybody who listens to this will get exactly what you saw, which is mountains, waterfalls, rivers, butterflies, children
Yeah,
playing, happiness, right? Now,
yeah, yeah.
there is a reason people are feeling like this. It's because this
Hmm.
particular scale or rag uses only 5 notes. In India, the rag is called Hamsadvani, and it
Hmm.
uses it uses only these 5 notes. Right? Now, this is called a
Beautiful.
pentatonic scale, and this scale is universal to mankind. So, every culture has
Hmm.
this pentatonic scale in some form or the other. But
Right.
coming back to this piece, it's not it's not an accident that everybody's feeling like this. It's by design, because this pentatonic scale has only 5 notes. The intervals actually, the way it create a very beautiful melodic kind of feeling, and that's why everybody sees this nature and greenery, and so now, if I were to take the first 3 notes of this scale and I just change the third note, you'll get a slightly different feeling. Okay, so let's demonstrate that. I'll take the first 3 notes.
Right.
Now I'm changing only the third note, right? Did you feel a little melancholy? Did you feel a little sad? Right?
Yeah,
With
I did. Yes.
the
Yeah.
third note change. So one note
Yeah.
change, and you can move from happiness to sadness. You can move from dawn to dusk. Nobody, when you hear the original piece of music, there's no way you could have seen night or anything close to night,
Right.
right? But with the change of one note, I can take you closer to night. So this is the power of sound. Now, we use the science
Right.
of sound to map the personality of brands. Now, if a brand says, "Look, I'm a motorbike brand, and I want to create exhilaration," right? Now, I want to create exhilaration, excitement. Then, probably you're looking at, you understand? That's exhilarating.
Right.
That's exciting. Now, peace and calm, I've
Yeah.
already shown you. But if you want, say, I'm a very happy brand, I want to make you feel happy. So, right? That's happiness for you.
Yeah.
So, this is
Yeah.
how we construct the sound of a brand, right? Using the science of sound, our Indian ragas, there's enough knowledge about, morning ragas, afternoon ragas, how ragas make you feel,
Yeah.
right? What is the
Right.
emotional response? And this, once we understand a brand's persona, if the brand were a human being, what kind of human being would the brand be? Is it a leader brand? Is it a very magical brand? Is it a very caring brand? Once we understand that, we actually then use the principle of Navarasas, which is again in our Indian classical uh, music and art and theater. And the whole idea is to create certain emotions in human beings. And those emotions are classified as Navarasas, or 9 principal emotions, which range from hasya, that is happiness, to or laughter, to adbhuta, wonder, or to shanta, peace, right? There are 9 such emotions. And then we construct the sonic identity using this science of sound into the art of music, where we now create a piece of music which will design to evoke those emotions, the core emotions of the brand. And within that, we have what we call a mogo, or a musical logo, right? So now this entire process takes about 6 to 8 weeks to design the proper sound of a brand. And once we design it, then we show the brand how to actually take it into various other media. Do you want to put it on your app? Do you want it as social media background music? Do you want it to begin and end your YouTube videos? Do you want it at the end of a television commercial? Do you want to create a version for your conferences or award shows, which is much more, rousing, etc., etc.? So that's the entire amplification that we do across what we call ear points or audio touch points. That, in a nutshell, is the sonic identity process. So you will understand that there is a lot of thinking that has gone into it, a lot of process, and at the end of it, there's also the magic of music. So we say the whole process is logic leading to magic.
Very well explained. Well, thank you for going into
But
depth and helping us understand that sound and music can definitely evoke emotions and memories. And when brands can leverage sound and music, I think it helps create a consistent image and recall for their consumers. Now, a
right,
powerful sonic assets help establish a very strong emotional connection with consumers as well. Now, I
right,
was just going through some of the studies related to sound in music, and Research shows that brands with strong brand assets achieve 76% higher brand power and
Yeah.
138% higher perceptions of advertising strength. Now, this includes sonic assets as well. I believe that you recently worked with Air India in creating a new sonic identity. So,
Air India
can you also
Express. Yeah. Yeah.
Air India Express, yes. So, can you
That's right.
also help us or listeners understand how did you go through the entire process and help enhance the brand experience for travelers, both in flight and across digital platforms?
Right. Yeah. So Air India Express was, I think, a fantastic experience for us because it was, a whole new brand identity was being created by the
Hmm.
brand, and they wanted
Right.
to represent, smart, connecting smart young Indians. That really was the brand ethos, and so we had a bit of a challenge because we wanted to use traditional Indian instruments to show the spread of Air India Express, even to the smaller towns, etc. At the same time, it's a comes through as a very smart, young, innovative brand, right? So in the sound, we really had to balance these two: the future forward nature of India and Indians, of young India, but the rootedness of timeless India, you know, and these two really came together in the Air India Express Mogo Scape, as we call it, which is the master sound for the brand. And well, the client is really ecstatic, and uh, it's on board now, the sound of Air India Express, and it's also being used on all their social media handles. They've got ringtones for employees. They launched it with a big bang in an aircraft hangar, in Mumbai, which we all attended. So all in all, I think it adds an important dimension to brands because it's an emotional dimension that music brings. So uh, while a visual identity is a cognitive dimension, it's something you see and you recognize. But sonic identity is an emotional dimension. It's something that you feel and you experience. So which is why today brands are really exploring the sensory dimension of sound, because it adds a whole new depth and emotional depth to your entire brand, not just your brand communication, but your brand personality, as it were. So I think one of the uh, questions you had asked me was, why do brands need an EQ or emotional quotient to be raised in this day and age? I think that's because, there are so many things happening in the digital world that is removing us from contact with real human beings. That's the truth. Now, brands are also facing this, right? Now, if you take a bank, for example, uh, when was the last time you met a human being in a bank, right? You probably only go to the ATM to withdraw your money, and if it's only once a year or something, if you need to visit the bank, you actually go and meet somebody. Compared to the earlier zamana or earlier generation, where my father used to drop in every week to have a chai with the bank manager, right? So those, so banks therefore need to add or plug the emotional deficit that's happening as a result of the entire digital world insulating people, really. And therefore music can, a sonic identity, a strong, well thought out sonic identity, can communicate who you are and help consumers experience the emotionality and emotional connection with your brand. I think Air India Express, it was exactly the same thinking, and hats off to them for having created this. So we, maybe somewhere in the background of this podcast, you should play a bit of the Air India Express Mogoscape. Uh, that that would be great. But yeah, it was all in all fantastic fantastic opportunity to create something for a new airline, virtually a new airline, but with all the tradition of its past.
Right, definitely. I think um like you've explained like the entire process of how you basically create a sonic identity for brands, and I think you very well mentioned a very important fact that it helps bring like build like an entire personality for a brand.
Right,
Um, but as we are growing and developing and we have constant innovations taking place, one such innovation is the voice technology. So
right.
do you think that the voice-enabled technological solutions can help amplify some brand sonic identity, or do you incorporate certain elements of voice-enabled technology, or you think you might use them in the future at brand music in terms of strategizing a sonic identity for a brand? What are your views on such technological innovations?
Yeah, so this is uh, a fantastic, you know, thing that has happened and keeps us all busy
Hmm. Right.
because you asked about my role as a founder. My
Hmm.
my role as a founder is to also keep my eye on the future, right?
Right. Right.
And while the present, thankfully, because there's of the amazing interest in sonic branding, the present is looking pretty good. But the future is equally important because the change is happening so fast that before we know it, if we are not, you know, with one step, one leg in the future, we'll be behind. So AI is rapidly changing the way anything is done, not just in sonic branding. Now, voice activated technology also is something that we are very aware of, and we have created the sonic identity for Mastercard globally, right? So, as I mentioned, Sonic Identity Foundation basically consists of a Mogoscape, which is the largest sonic palette for the brand, with a clear melody. Uh, there is a Mogo, which is the essence of that, which is a musical logo. But there's also a mini Mogo that we create, which is a Mogo is around 3 to 4 seconds. A mini Mogo is 1.5 seconds, below 1.5 seconds, and that's for transaction confirmation sounds, notifications, alerts, etc. But coming from the sonic identity, it's not just a random sound, right? So it's a shorter version of the Mogo, a quicker version of the Mogo, and in all Alexa transactions, Alexa or voice activated transactions, if you are buying a concert ticket, for example, and you're using your Mastercard, how does Mastercard, or how do any brands brand themselves on a medium where no visual branding is possible, right? Voice activated speaker systems, etc. You can't visually brand it, so you have to sonically brand it, which is where the mini Mogo comes in. So every time you buy a ticket or you ask Alexa to get you something, once the purchase happens, then the mini Mogo confirms that the purchase has happened, and then you know it's from Mastercard. Subliminally, it's going into your mind. So that's something that is being done for many of our clients' brands, where the mini Mogo is playing uh, a strong as a strong branding device to confirm transactions, etc. But voice activation, as far as we are concerned, is just one of the things that's happening. More exciting is AI, and how can AI really, help amplify music for brands. And once we create the Mogoscape or the Mogo, just imagine uh, if we are able to create content, if AI is able to create content where we just feed in the Mogo and AI creates different pieces according to where the brand what the brand wants to do, right? And that suddenly explodes the entire possibilities of AI for us and for brands. A lot of brands are using stock music, for example, but why not have your own sonic identity generated music, which can be done, and we are working on creating that platform right now as we speak. So yeah, it's very exciting times. I think really it's just the beginning of the journey with AI. One of the challenges is how to actually make AI learn the rules so it can provide music that is suited for our brands. That's something we are working on, and it's very exciting times. Very exciting time. Voice modulation, using voices to recreate different voice textures. Uh, for example, if we are talking of voice activated speaker systems, how can we create voices which are suited to the overall persona of a brand, right? Do you use a female voice? Do you use a male voice? Do you use a high pitched voice? Do you do low pitched voice? What kind of values does the brand stand, which again comes from the entire sonic identity process? So these are just some of the top of the head thoughts on where technology will take us in the immediate future. It's not as if it's 10 years from now. I would say 6 years, 6 months, 12 months from now.
Right, definitely. It was quite interesting to listen to your thoughts and understand how AI and different technological innovations can help shape sonic identity or sonic assets that probably you can use or you guys are creating in terms for each brand. Now, you also mentioned earlier that that each brand has a specific a personality, and accordingly,
Yes.
you try to create a sonic identity for them. So I think there are a lot of specific details that go into picture when creating a sonic identity. So
Yeah.
and I'm sure that you have to create like a very unique and a different sonic identity for each brand, depending upon their goals or requirements or
Right.
how their consumers want to perceive them, for that
Yes.
matter. But I want to know that how do you quantify the impact of a sonic strategy, or how do you measure the effectiveness
Hmm.
of how well the sonic identity is performing for a particular brand? So,
Right.
like, I think that's one of the challenge that I came across, or what are some of the challenges that are prevalent in this industry, and how do you intend to address or overcome them?
Right. So I think one of the key challenges is that the industry basically is audio visual focused, right?
Right.
So all the measurement studies are essentially audio visual focused, which is your TV commercial focused, right? So if you look at all the major research companies in the world and in India, they have lots of processes and systems of how to measure the effectiveness of an audio visual medium. But when it comes to actually tracking and understanding the impact of a sonic identity, which is a sound only medium, right? It becomes a little more complex. There is no visual to really back it. How do you track basically what the piece of music is evoking? Now, just as when I played the flute for you earlier in the session, you got certain imagery, you had certain feelings, right? So as I played something like this, you got a feeling of nature, water, etc., etc. Okay. Now, if we were to
Right.
extrapolate this to a brand, and suppose we had created this piece of music for a nature brand, a wellness brand,
Mm-hmm.
and the brand said, look, I want to evoke a feeling of nature, I want to evoke a feeling of calm and peace and water and things like that. Now, basically, the research would have to find out, are these emotions and this imagery, it's called sonic virtuality. What is the virtual images that this piece of sonic is actually creating? So the parameters for evaluation become slightly different, and we are actually working closely with research agencies. A lot of our clients, when after we've created it, before they really launch it, they do either a qualitative research, quantitative research, not so much, it's more qualitative, but sometimes it can be a combination of quali and quanti. And a lot of clients also use neuro testing, right? Where there's certain parameters set to understand brain waves, and you understand how the brain waves shift and what kind of emotions do those shifts signify. So it's possible from a piece of music to actually understand the emotional graph that the music is impacting the listener, the emotional graph, right? So it's early days for sonic research yet, but we have been through quite a few research studies, and the client has been amazed at times where the music that we've created for the brand absolutely matches the consumer's perception of that piece of music, right? So that is in the short term before you launch a Mogoscape, before you launch a Mogo. But say brands like MasterCard, etc., are regularly doing tracking over time. Year one, how is the needle shifted in terms of salience, in terms of emotional impact, etc. So has the brand's emotional quotient gone up, right? So this is it's a subtler dimension which really leads to an overall impact on the brand's equity in long term, emotional equity also. So that's really where tracking and research etc. is currently.
Right. Quite logical, I would say. And I think understanding the emotional response or the connection made between a consumer and a brand on probably like a conscious or a subconscious level kind of helps build a sonic strategy for a brand, I believe. Now, having said that, how do you feel would be the future of sonic branding, or how brands in the future would shift their perspective towards sonic identity or having strong sonic assets?
Well, all I can say is the future is sound. So uh,
Quite well said.
that that's our uh, sign off actually. Brand music hashtag the future is sound,
Right,
right? So
right. Okay.
uh, yeah, it's very exciting. It's very exciting because brands are realizing that you know communication which is overt and targeted has a role to play. But today the consumer is expecting much more subtlety from brands, right? And while we may have communication, you may have ads, etc., etc., the consumer is consuming so much content, and the consumer doesn't necessarily want that content to be from brands, right? So how do brands create experiences which goes beyond their face to face kind of communication? Sound can play a big part in creating these subconscious experiences for brands without overtly branding it and you know hitting you on the head with it. So I would say that sonic branding adds a huge dimension in this age of media clutter. How do you stand out, right? Your sonic brand can help you stand out. How do you go beyond the transactional nature of the digital medium? Your sonic branding can help you connect much deeper emotionally. How do you trigger your entire brand world in 3 seconds? A mogo or musical logo over time can, without anything else being around, It can trigger associative memories of all that you're doing with your brand, all the surround sound, all the imagery a Mogo can trigger. So brands are realizing that a sonic identity is no longer, just a nice to have, that it's a must have. It's an imperative in this digital age, and it's not just array ek jingle banao. No, there is a process, there is a science, and there is an art. So all of this, I think, bodes very well for the sonic branding industry, and I, for one, I'm personally looking forward to the next 3-4 years. I think is going to be tremendous uh, for the sonic branding industry and for us at Brand Music.
Definitely. And I think as the world becomes increasingly digitized, the importance of sonic branding, both in physical and digital context, will definitely increase. And like you earlier mentioned, I think advances in generative AI will also further amplify this space.
Oh
So
yes,
overall, I think yeah, in digital realm where people no longer simply listen to music, but they're actively using it to shape their environment. And I think you very well demonstrated that by helping us understand that when you're listening to a particular music, what is something that you can think of or imagine or feel that way. So I
right.
think that way sonic branding has taken on new dimensions. So if brands want to create custom soundscapes for the virtual environments and using music and sound effects, which is tailored for the particular messaging and identity, that also enhances the user experience through sound, then I think sonic branding is must, and brands should really focus on creating strong sonic assets that can help amplify the user experience only through sound. Well, thank you
Ab-
so much, Rajiv. It was a pleasure having you with us today. Sorry if I
Same here.
interrupted you. I think you were saying something.
No, 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 no. Same here, same here. I think it was a
Yeah.
pleasure. Loved your questions. They really covered the entire gamut of sonic branding and where
Yes.
it can go.
Definitely, I think it was a very refreshing conversation, to be honest. I think, to be honest, I'm a marketing enthusiast, but listening about sonic branding was so refreshing, and helped us learn so much about sonic branding, or how sound and music can shape a brand's personal identity. So it was quite insightful, I would say, and loved hearing your tones as well. Thank you
Okay.
for letting me go through that experience of imagining myself that I'm sitting in a waterfall or environment, and that reminds me that probably I need a vacation. But yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure
Yes.
having you with us. It
Yeah.
was definitely a very great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yes, so this is for
And
our listeners.
apologies,
Stay tuned.
apologies for the intrusion of the mobile phone while I was playing. But I
No,
think
that's
in a
okay.
funny way that also demonstrates how sound can also be disruptive if not used well.
Disruptive. Yeah, I was about to add that. I was about to add that digitization definitely has made life simpler, but it can be disruptive as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So this is for our listeners. Stay tuned for upcoming podcast, and you can listen to all our podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.